Going on, everyone? How's it going? How we doing? How we doing? Just getting all set up here. We excited for some snow? Excited for some snow? I know this will be a lot of people's. First of all, can I be heard? Let's check that. We all good with sound? uh, yeah. What's going on, Greg? Oh, Sean, man, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. From Guam? Bro, I'm fine. See, listen, here's the thing you guys gotta know with me. It's not like I know a lot of people on this platform get very vulnerable and reveal all their inner thoughts on Twitter. That's kind of how it returned. What's up, John? Um, I don't do that. Most of it is pretty light-hearted surface stuff. I keep a lot of that stuff close to my family and close friends. Um, I'm perfectly fine. The Celtics piss me off. That's what happens. Okay, from I was gonna say your username looked familiar, so I was confused. From Guam, but uh, yeah, good. That's a good question. Um, so first, we're gonna take a look at what's going on right now for tomorrow's storm. Okay, it's not a big time system, but it is going to impact some people tomorrow morning into tomorrow afternoon. Um, yeah, glad you could pop in. But yeah, we're basically we got it's just mainly a north stream is what we're dealing with here, northern war. You can kind of see what happened throughout the day was, and I was kind of hinting at yesterday was we had a little bit. If we could, nope, a little bit bigger. If we could get this out in front, we could draw in a little bit more um, without over amplifying it to an extent. Um, we could help preserve and pull our energy back a little bit more, not like that at that angle, but ideally we could pull our energy back and reserve and amplify and consolidate our energy a little bit more, because eventually we can see, even though this is a quote unquote clipper, we do close off at 500. We have a closed off 500 millibar low, and this is a pretty amplified. I know I'm using the GFS. This is just what I had. Deal with it. We're gonna look through all the models, I promise, or at least the ones, a good amount of them, and then we'll not a deep dive, but then we'll go into the big prize that everybody is looking at. But notice we're closed off here at 500. Right? We have cold air in place. Notice this little lobe here, the PV. We got plenty of cold air in place, right? And then we have a pretty decent Vort max right here, and this is why I say you look at 500 and you don't look at the P-type maps. I know a lot of you are spamming, not spamming, but you can put in questions in. I promise, when we if I don't see your question, I'll try to answer it at the end. So don't feel like you have to spam your question. We'll get to them. I promise. But if we look through across all the models here, it's boom closed off, pretty decent Vort at 500, right? Fairly amplified. Take a look at the Euro. All right, we just saw the NAM closed off right at 500. Even the Canadian hopped onto this. You want to see how long ago the Canadian hopped onto this one? I mean, pretty close. I mean, what are we talking about here? That's not too bad. Canadian hopped onto this one. It was way off in terms of um, location, where the pieces were set up, where the pieces around it were set up. But it did it decent. It sniffed this out earlier than anything else. Um, but this was right. We have a good at 500. This is the look. this is a look that I see, and I'm like, oh, well, why aren't the P-type maps showing more? Right, because if we look at 700, right, 700 millibar we look at for a lot of our banding features as well. So we'll zoom in here. We'll go to Eastern U.S. Right, we look at 700 here, and we have some pretty decent dynamics here. I mean, we take a look here. I mean, immediately, all right, we have some juice and a little bit offshore. Now, this is my next question. We're going to get into in a second here. We're going to get into this in a second. The inverted trough part of the system. So it's kind of, I don't want to say a two-part system, but it kind of is in a sense where, right, we have our energy or vorticity, so to speak, diving in from the north, from the west northwest. Right, so we have this diving in. But what's going to happen is as we transition throughout the day tomorrow, go back to 500. As we transition throughout the day, what's going to happen is we're going to start to see this fort amplify a little bit, and we can notice a little bit of a consolidation. We open back up at 500, but notice our energy vorticity is consolidating, and this is the time frame where I look at it and say, Sunday evening into early Monday morning. I mean, I think we have an opportunity here for some potentially some backfilling bands to set up. Maybe two or three bands that we can get to set up. Not all simultaneously, but I'm just saying two or three different maximums where we could be looking at. Right? I told you if you saw from the tweets, I was talking about. This is a general 2 to 5 inches, right? In this area, it's a general. We're talking about a general 2 to 5 inches in this area. But maybe in some swaths, we get maybe we get a 4 to 8 here. Maybe we get a nice little 4, 5, 8. Maybe another one right here. I'm curious. To a lot of models, depending on how they consolidate our energy, how far away, right? Because we gotta remember, we're working with an inverted trough here. So don't focus on where the band is showing, what the P-type map. Don't focus. What I want you to focus on here is something we've highlighted before. Some of you, especially YouTube folks, are going to remember. Watch how our isobars invert here. We've talked about this before here. Notice our isobars invert. Right, so we're stringing out, right? We're stringing out some of our dynamics, and we're stringing out some of our moisture. So we're pulling. So instead of really, right, notice there's no one massive consolidated area here. We're a bit strung out everywhere. So what can happen is, right, under these little, right, when we string out under some pockets where we strung out this energy, we can get some local areas of potentially, those small little maximas of snow that I was talking about, where you can get some small little banding features to set up along, we call it a little bit of a Norland trough here, right? Where you notice it's not completely consolidated, but notice how it almost looks like it gets strung out. Watch the evolution here. And you can kind of see this here on the, forget what's happening now. This is going to eventually intensify into a pretty strong cyclone in Canadian Maritimes. Notice how this gets strung out from the original low pressure system, because watch what happens. Our isobars are inverting, right? We're pulling against the low pressure here. Right? Our dynamics are pulling against our low pressure system here, and we're clearly not aligned at 500 from the surface to 500. We're clearly not stacked and aligned throughout the atmosphere. So we take a look here, 500, 700, right? We're so strung out here at 700. So right at the point, we're not looking at an actual snowstorm, right? But when we're not able to consolidate, we know we can't consolidate it, and we know we're not going to be able to get a massive snowstorm out of this. We established this a few days ago. But what we can get out of this, we can string out some of this banding, We can get some small pockets, potentially 4, 5, 6, 7 inches, maybe some small pockets. Even though it's a general 1 to 3, 2 to 5 inches, I think given how strong our vort is going to be over here, I think a lot of these, maybe not that far, but I think a lot of these places here, regardless, are going to get 2 to 4 inches of snow here. The question is, can we get some small pockets here, right? Maybe New Jersey, Hudson Valley. And can we get maybe a little swath here? Connecticut, right by the terrain. I would guess I'm not. I'm gonna take a shot here. What I think where I'm gonna set up on the snow map tonight when I release that, which will be after the stream. I'm really tired. Just flew cross country. Celtics pissed me off. And B, Billy's streaming as well after, so make sure you hop in his stream after. But three things, threefold. Point is, I'm thinking, right, because we have the Connecticut River Valley here. I'm thinking maybe on the other side of this, maybe we can look for something here in Connecticut and Rhode Island along the coast. I'm telling you, notice we have all this, right? This is at 700, right? All this opportunity for banding to potentially set up, in some of these areas, right? And especially this area just offshore. I'm curious how that evolves, right? We have some pretty actually decent banding offshore, so I'm curious to see how this sets up. And what we're kind of doing here is we're kind of, right when we're talking about, we're dragging out this vorticity, right? So we're going to be able to potentially throw some banding back from the Atlantic, right, over land. So it's not like a complete big trough back to flow, and we're just pumping, strong moisture off the Atlantic to meet that cold air to get some, big time CCB FGen bands. But it's obviously not that big time kind of snowstorm. But it's not something you're gonna want to be messing around with. Try to make plans tomorrow. I would advise. A lot of times, a lot of the biggest accidents occur when there's not a lot of snow, because people think, oh, it's only an inch or two of snow, shouldn't be that bad, and then they go out and the roads are like kind of slushy, snowy slushy, and that's when the traction is at its worst on your tires. So hard to brake, and then also you can't account for what someone else does on the road as well. So I would advise to just enjoy your Sunday, stay in. Don't try to do anything ridiculous. Now, New York City, I know some people were asking about New York City. Problem is, notice, you're going to be right almost on the southern end of your upper level low. Oh, that's not a good color. Switch for a second. Notice where we are relative to the upper level low. And then eventually, you'll sit on the north side of this. Eventually, on the back side, that is, right, notice now we're flooding in all this cold air. Notice where our wind's coming from, right? We're pulling in all this Arctic air, just flooding in now. So it's going to be cold on the backside of this. Tomorrow night and Monday will probably be pretty cold for a lot of folks. And I think that's your best chance, right? Because we're going to remember, we still have some energy left to work with. So potentially some ocean effect maybe on Monday as well. I know we've had ocean effect tonight. We've had ocean effect. We're gonna have ocean effect tomorrow as well, especially off southeastern Mass. But potentially some banding might be able to get left behind by the time we get to Monday. Take a look here. Nothing showing up on the P-type map. But let's see if we can get a sounding. No, I can't get soundings. Anything at 700? Still a little bit. I'm telling you, we could get some ocean effect on Monday still. Wouldn't shock me to get some ocean effect. And so, right here, this is where New York City can cash in. Notice here at 700, right? probably a pretty decent band that's set up here at this point. Some decent banding, right? Not the whole area isn't covered in a band, right? There's it's not it doesn't always work, perfectly. It's not just one big massive band. That's not how the atmosphere works. But notice how as this is pulling out, New York City on the last maybe gets a nice little coating. Nice little coating, maybe New York City early Monday morning, late Sunday night, late. I mean, wee hours. I mean, basically Monday morning. You can see here on the P-type map, right, showing a little bit something. I would think even a little bit more, but I don't know. I think this has a potential to overperform. Right? If this is probably what my snow map is going to look like. It's going to look like, right? It will be the one to probably do a code in, right? We'll do a code into one. You know, Long Island, I'm curious. I want to go 1 to 3 for Long Island. I really do. But I'm just not sure how much is going to stick. Nothing will stick in the city, but around this area, we'll go, probably code into one, maybe even a little bit higher. And then it'll be the 1 3 up to 1 to 2, 1 to 3. We'll see. I don't like going perfect. I don't like doing the 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 to 12. I don't feel like I need to do that. I just put the numbers of how much snow I think the area is going to get. That's how I like to do things. But then right, 2 to 5, I think we'll go. So I have to look at PA a little bit closer. So we'll see about that. And then I think in there I'll put a pocket over Hudson Valley. Right, this is a terrain area in PA too, so maybe something there. And then maybe I'm not sure. I think I want to put. I'm not sure if I want to do 2 or 3 Maximus. And I think I'm going to want to do another pocket in here of either 4 to 8, 4 to 7, 5 to 7, something along those lines. We got any questions about this one before we move on to the one or have your eyes on? I know you all have your eyes on that one because I've had my eyes on this bad boy for a minute. I can't ignore it. Does it? Did I make a face? Like a scream face, maybe? Can we see double-digit inches somewhere? Pause. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's theoretically possible. I don't know what the GFS. I'm not concerned with what the total snowfall is. The GFS. I mean, I just told you, what we can expect. I think there'll be a couple pockets, potentially of 5 to 8 inches, and you never know. It could be. It would. I'll put it like this: I'm not expecting it, but it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. It's not going to be in my forecast, but it wouldn't shock me if we did have a couple total seed, 10 plus inches. Inverted isobars don't necessarily, for Twitter folks, I'm reading YouTube and Twitter comments at the same time. So for those that are thinking I'm just talking to myself, I promise people are commenting, and then we'll move on to the big prize. Inverted isobars don't necessarily guarantee overachiever. It's just with this specific setup, it does. Or it doesn't even guarantee it. It may not. It's possible. Maybe we don't have enough moisture to pull out of the atmosphere to get strong enough banding. But I think we will, because we're going to tap into that moisture off into the Atlantic a little bit, and we're going to pull. I mean, this is a pretty solid upper level low, right? This is a good amount of energy that we're working with here. And I think this could be enough to potentially surprise some folks. Is what's going to stick? When you measure, it's snowfall accumulated. It's accumulated snowfall. So if you got out a snowboard and you measured, your snowfall. That's how much snow. I can't forecast the different pavements, the different patios, the different bricks, the different grass, turf, whatever you have. I can't account for that. I can only account for if you put a snowboard in your yard and you measure the snowfall. That's all I can account for. Anything else we got? Anything else before? Yeah, I mean, just in general, grass gets more because people drive on pavement. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so first off, this is a big system. This is a big system, and it's gonna. I don't want to say bomb out, but it's going to. It is definitely going to be a big system involved in the Midwest and Northern Plains first before it gets to our area. So what we have is a little bit of an interesting block. Let's zoom out here. North America. Before we look at everything. All right, we got our good negative NAO in place, right? And Greenland completely covered, right? And we got a good block, good Canadian block here. And we'll have to switch to yellow. So we've talked about this on previous streams before, right? When we have this high latitude blocking and even pressing down into Canada, it would take a ridiculous cyclone to power through this thing, and even then, it may not be able to. So that we are strong upper level low, a strong vort profile here at 500 millibars. So this thing wants to drive through, right? This is right. We have this big trough that dipped in, and it wants to amplify. That's what it wants to do. Problem is, it can't because we have. I mean, you can see the blocking we have in place here. It's really difficult for something to budge through. So what's going to happen is it's going to break down. This big trough is going to break down, and we're going to kind of get a piece potentially. We still have to work out the details, but notice how even more. This is where you want your blocking. Just on the surface, there's little details in between when it comes to the trough, size of the system, the placement of our energy / vorticity. There's different factors that come into play. But when I see a massive block like this right here, immediately those bells start ringing. Like, okay, we could do something. We could do something with here, and even a little bit too. Almost makes me think, could this suppress? Is what part of me thinks. If we have such a big block like this, part of me thinks that. But this is going to be a really, really amplified vort, right? If we take a look here at 500, that's every model. Okay, so I know I'm just showing the GFS, but I can get all these different. It's easy to access to move through all the different parameters on the GFS. So we'll go through the Euro and Canadian as well. We'll look at the globals and the ensemble lovers. Typically the ensembles follow the operational and run-to-run shifts, but we can take a look at those as well before when we do hop off. But notice, right? Big time vort profile. Oh, now we gotta switch back. I think blue will be good right here. And notice our big time block. So, right, we can't amplify up into here, right? We can't even push this upper level low here. Not even here, right? So, immediately when we have such a big block, I think we can throw Cutter off the table, unless this was drastically misforecasted. Just possible, but I don't think that's quite what's going to happen, right? When we have such a big block like this, we have this block here. We're not going to be able to just full on amplify the system, run through the block. We can't do that, right? There's open space. So imagine if I have this big wall this big wall right here, and there's no doors. There's no doors. It is really hard. First of all, it would be something ridiculous to try to do this, right? So that's unrealistic. The only way for this system to get around the wall is to try to go around this way, right? And don't take it verbatim of where the upper level low is tracking. So when we have high pressure in place, it steers our systems regardless if it's tropical, regardless if it's winter weather. High pressure has a massive influence on steering where our storm systems go. Not always regardless of the strength of the storm, but many times regardless of the strength of the storm, there's a big influence on how it sets up exactly where our storm system is going to go. Take a look here on the euro as well. It's probably slightly different, I imagine. You can see it's this is not even the same time frame. Go to 114 hours. Here we go. All right, we're slightly different. We take a look here. 12Z. No, this was not the time frame I picked. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Got it. All right, notice our block present, also present. I just had to get the time frame right? Big time high pressure here. So we're not even, right? Euro, GFS are top two golden models. Oh, the Canadian's making a push, let me tell you. I'm just messing. But the Canadian was giving these two a run for its money based on the week out forecast. But right, so obviously we don't reverse the flow. That's not what happens. Not in this. I've yet to see it in my time forecasting in this region of the country. Right, and we're not going to push through here. This is where it goes. So now the question is, when it meets that block, what exactly is the evolution that happens, right? Because when I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say the Canadian's been on top, but Canadian did well, not with how the storm happened, but just picking up on it. It picked up on this system tomorrow that we're going to see. Picked up on it. Try to drop like 2 feet of snow, which is not going to happen. But beside the point. So now that we have this block, right? It's harder to amplify systems. A lot of times when we have a strong vort in place and then there's nowhere for this to amplify, then a lot of times we break up. 500 opens up, and then when it's able to reconsolidate again, then it starts to be able to gain more latitude, potentially slowly depending on how much it's amplified, but still gain latitude. And that's a pretty good look. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so we just put it 500 there, right? So let's push back so we don't get you too excited. I skipped some steps. All right, this is our big time upper level low here. All right, and typically we look to the north and west of our upper level low, and that's where we see our largest snowfall totals typically. It's typically where we see our largest snowfall totals, north and west of upper level low. So if you're right over the upper level low, or south, or to the southeast, or to the east of your upper level low, that's not where you want to be relative to see snow. Because we have cold air out in front of our system, you want to stay locked into the cold air the whole time. And if the upper level low goes over you, then throughout different levels of the atmosphere, you're going to be too warm and you're going to mix for rain. So you don't want to be over the upper level low. It's just specific details I'm getting into, but I'm just letting you know in general when you're looking at all this stuff, in general when you're trying to figure out what each run shows and possible solution for. Again, this is a little far out to be looking at specific stuff because models are all over the place. That was Euro Run. GFS, still doesn't know how much does it want to hang on to this original. It's the same system, but not at the same time. So what's going to happen is it's going to break up, potentially reconsolidate, and then where that happens is going to be the key. The dog is making his presence known. That's fine. Uh, we play this out. Notice it's a different solution from the euro, which is expected so far out. Right, big time upper level low, big block. Right, but we have, notice this big time ridge we got over here in the west coast though. Right, so we just got a river to flow our dynamics down. Right, flow cold Arctic air along with these dynamics. That's going to be trying to rush into the system. And I wouldn't say do a full phase technically, but some sort of stream interaction here. I mean, it's almost kind of, not quite, but we see some sort of stream interaction take place. It's hard to say. The GFS elongates, and part of the problem I've had with the GFS and a lot of these runs um, is it's just elongating the vorticity at 500, stretching it out just unrealistic ways. It's latching on to little areas to try to intensify 500. I think it's GFS is all over the place and it's really messy. So I'm trying to stay away from the GFS in terms of any possible final solutions. I just the inconsistency, the different, I mean, scenarios, just unrealistic stuff at 500. So if I'm, if I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen, until I see some more realistic scenarios and consistency with the GFS, not that any one couldn't technically happen. It's just, I mean, last time I tried to split this into two storms, two small storms. It's been all over the place in terms of its consistency at 500. And I mean, it's such a big system, so there's so many different variables when you have a big system, and we have a big ridge in different, right? We have this big western ridge. We have, right, this atmospheric flow of dynamics that are pushing in, and there's so many different scenarios we can get with stream interaction between our pieces here at 500 millibars that's why you're seeing so many different scenarios, right? And the placement of the block is key. How that develops, how soon the block happens. So I'd say this system getting out of the way first will be helpful. This system getting out of the way, I think stuff will become much clearer by that time. Hopefully, we have a pretty good idea already by the time we get to Thursday. But it's because it seems like this one's going to linger. And right, this is connected to the last system, right? This lobe associated with the polar vortex, a lobe of the polar vortex, not necessarily just right. It's Arctic air in place. We talked about this. It's Arctic air in place, right? In this 500, we see a little bit of phase, almost a full-time phase right there. Big time system bombs out in the Canadian Maritimes, and they get their own little fun there. But it's associated with the pattern. There's different pieces of the pattern that are associated. The strength and location of this ridge will be very key, very, very key. Ideally, we can shift this a little bit farther east. I would want to shift this a little bit farther east, just because if we pull this farther west, then we're relying, right? Our big time high up here is gonna press down, and we're relying on that, but we're okay with relying on it because it seems like a pretty stable variable we have here. So we don't need to worry about this suddenly just vanishing, which I guess theoretically it could happen, but I don't think we need to worry about the block just vanishing. But I don't want to just rely on the block to suppress our system too much because we over amplified out here, and now it has, in order for it to stay all snow in these regions without it overrunning. I shouldn't say these regions, I should say coastal regions. In order for I-95 to say, or not I-95, but close to I-95, just west around I-95, to be able to have a shot to be all snow, or at least mostly snow, and still get a big time system without being a full time suppression, we're getting the location of the ridge will be important with that as well, for sure. Right? So we talked about it. There's different variables. How this evolves. What we see here, location of the ridge, timing of these pieces, and how we see the stream interaction take place. It is going to be very important as well. Not having to worry about a southeast ridge, that is nice, although sometimes they can work to our advantage, depending on the system. How does this amplify? That will be important as well, for sure. How strong of a block do we have? And how soon does our high pressure strengthen as well? That will also be another factor that will be very important when we're looking at the system. So you can just see I've highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different significant variables, not just minor details, significant variables that we still have to hone down. So before you go latching off, and I tweeted about this earlier, just trying to figure out, did the rain snow line shift here? What was the total snowfall? How much did we see? Oh, it was 8 inches last run. It was only 3 this run. Oh no! Oh no! 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 I need the snow. You can't forecast like that. You can't forecast like that. It's just not how forecasting works. You have to work your way down from the levels of the atmosphere down to figure out what's going to happen at the surface first. So don't get latched on to one scenario, especially the GFS right now. The Euro tend does a little bit better with these massive systems. Right, this is a large system. Right, the Euro tends to do a little bit better. It has in the past. Maybe it won't. This system, we'll see. Maybe when we get to the 3-day range, the GFS starts to assimilate the data better. It starts to take in the data better, and then starts to handle the pieces better. It has a better idea, and then maybe the GFS does well inside that 2 to 3-day range. Even though the GFS is very vulnerable to being wrong in that range, time and time again. But right, this is not a 2-part classic Miller-B phase. Miller-B system, not a classic 2-part phase kind of system, though. Right, it's this big upper level low that's going to get broke down by the block, and then whatever we have flowing in from the stream interaction, we're getting hosed here. We got like 4 frames breaking up, and then whatever comes down, or whatever we have to work with, is going to be a part of this. So it's hard to say. What the Euro is doing, has this big block up here, and it's making it difficult. The GFS a little bit more of a vertical block. If that makes any sense. Instead with the GF, still a big block here on the Euro, but we're making it harder for just so much chaos to happen when we're constantly flowing in vorticity. We're making it more and more. We're adding more and more variables. We're making it more difficult each solution, each run for the GFS to try to figure something out. So that's why the GFS, you're going to continue to see it struggle until it hones in on exactly where the pieces are and how this evolves. We definitely got to wait to get tomorrow's system out of the way first, for sure. And tomorrow's system is technically going to eventually be phased with our cold air that's in place currently, and that's going to become a big time mid-latitude cyclone in the Canadian Maritimes. You can That's what's left of that 6 days out, according to the Euro at this time. So we still have plenty of questions as usual, but it was good that we could pick up on just pick up on some of the variables that are going to be a part of the equation that we're going to continue to talk about, assuming uh, assuming we can keep the pieces on the table. The pieces are very much on the table. I will say that. And the ceiling of this storm is very high. You could get a big time snowstorm. Like you could get a multi-day kind of snowstorm, multi-day big time snowstorm with this kind of event. You could. Um, you also could not. And when we described why. All right, there's different solutions that can take place here. So this is not all just guaranteed. No, it's not. Nothing of this is guaranteed. But I very much like this setup. I really do. I think we have strong enough of a block and enough amplification of our upper level low. The questions will be how does this evolve? How does this evolve? Location of the upper level low. Right? How does this evolve? Obviously, we talked about all the different variables and how it takes place, but the evolution of our upper level low and the factors and variables that we talked about that lead up to the final result is what's going to be key here. When in doubt, always follow the upper level low. Always follow the upper level low. Very good key to have when forecasting this stuff. Right? It's complex, right? Every system is complex in different ways. Tomorrow, not so much. Well, yes, because of an inverted trough. The inverted trough piece makes it a little bit more difficult. But in general, tomorrow's it's not as big of a system. It's not as big of a deal to worry about in terms of messing up the forecast. If I mess up the forecast tomorrow, I'm not going to throw hands with the GFS or something. But I'd win, by the way. I would beat the GFS. I'd beat that computer for sure. That didn't sound confident, but I promise you I could. Is there a chance Maryland could get snow with this storm for later next week? Yeah. If you're in the Mid Atlantic or even the South, what you want to root for. I was looking at Northeast. What you want to root for is this block, which I didn't highlight very good there. If you live in Maryland, yeah, and you guys got questions, throw them in. I saw someone put something about the Pacific, but in the YouTube chat. But if you guys had questions earlier in the Twitter chat that I didn't answer as well, throw them down now. Whatever you got. If it's this system that I just talked about, or the next system, or when I mean the next system, I mean it's the system tomorrow. Whatever questions you got, I'll answer them the best I can. May not be good, but I'll try my best. If you live in Maryland, what you want is you want almost relatively close to the area. You want this block here to really suppress our system and press it down until maybe you get another piece to kick in, and then we amplify our upper level low off the East Coast, probably making it difficult. We can't probably get a full-on retrograde of an amplification. That's the solution that I-95 coast. That's what you want to root for. But in terms of just mid-Atlantic areas, you want to root for a little bit of a slider where our upper level low tracks off, and we get some amplification, but not enough, to ride up and be a, Worcester, Hartford, Hudson Valley, Albany, Southern Vermont, Northeastern PA kind of event. which is what the Euro was showing 12Z today. That was the kind of run was showing today. Pacific getting too close to the energy. I'm not worried about the Pacific with this system. I'm not. Not really all that worried, and I say that because of this thing right here. Nice, good old high pressure place. Hopefully that answered your question about Maryland. This big old high pressure in place. That's why I'm not super concerned about a big intrusion of the Pacific. And what he's talking about is a lot of times we can push in high pressure and we can just invade with Pacific warm air. And what happens is it helps systems amplify sooner. And if you don't have a block in place, then you have to worry about a big time cutter or farther west than a cutter. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about this system. I told you the problems that, or I don't want to say problems, but I don't even want to say problems or things to like. Just I mean, obviously there's things to like if we're talking about the potential for a big snowstorm. Again, it's not a guarantee, but we're talking about potential for a big storm. That's things to like, obviously, but there's different variables, so it's not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee whatsoever, but it is very much something that has my attention. And as long as it doesn't vanish, which I don't think it will, at least hopefully not, I think we're going to have something to track. I think we could have our first big system to track, regardless of where it hits. This could be our first big system. So, yeah. We got any last questions? Well, the campfire Christmas music plays in the background. I used to play I was playing some Christmas music with actual lyrics in some of my previous streams, but I like the Christmas jazz a little bit better. And also I can't get copyrighted. Do you think central New Jersey can see 6 inches of snow on Friday? My man, it's too early to talk about specific totals right now. I know you want an answer, but I can't give you something we don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not Nostradamus. I only know so much. I'm happy you think I'm that smart, but actually, strange you think I'm that smart. I don't think I've shown that I'm that smart, but I do try to do my best. And not necessarily to please you guys. I know that may be a little disappointed here that I don't do this for you, but I have a genuine interest in this, so I pursue it as I want to. Concord, New Hampshire gets any snow from the storm? Yeah, I think so. Concord's not really a good spot. I'm curious if you could get some coastal enhancement. I'm curious if you could. I don't think you'll get. I don't think you're far enough south and east to get enough. But yeah, I think coding to 2, 1 to 3, coding to 2 inches is a good bet for Concord. How do I think the rest of Mid-Atlantic, Northeast snow chances in December? I mean, I'm trying not to look too far beyond right now, to be honest, but we'll see. Models, we have such big, amplified systems. The pattern can get pretty complicated when models are trying to figure things out. So I wouldn't latch on to any one scenario right now. But if the GFS is right and that blocks stays around, I mean, supposedly we're gonna have a negative NAO to last for a little while. So I hope it does. West, we want that west-based negative NAO that we talked about. Right, that's the negative NAO we want right there. That west-based negative NAO. And you can see this is, I mean, this is the time frame we're looking at. Look at the time frame we're looking at. This is a good look. This is a good look. Really good look. Now, down to the mile, trying to figure out your backyard. I'm sorry. That's impossible to do this far. Anybody who tells you they can, they're lying. New Haven? Well, curious. Curious. I would say, here's how I'll phrase it. I think I'll put you probably in the 2 to 5, but I think 1 to 3 is your floor. Will probably be a bit of a wet snow tomorrow, so don't expect a lot of accumulation on roadways potentially until the nighttime. But I would say 1 to 3 is your floor. I would say 3 to 5 is your low end ceiling, so within reason, and then I would say 5 to 7 is your boom scenario. I don't study meteorology in college. I just picked it up. I guess you could say. I've just been following it for enough years to the point where where I could understand it. I watched a lot of people's streams. By the way, right, Billy's stream. I think he's going to be going in the next half hour, and we'll wrap up in the next 5-10 minutes or whatever. But uh, the more I've studied this for some years now, I just have a better understanding. I can't tell you every dynamic. I can't tell you every calc or physics equation like a lot of people can on here. So I'm not that, but I know what to look for. I know what to look for when it comes to the eastern U.S. and snowstorms, primarily northeast. Do you think schools in central Connecticut can get affected? Yeah, yeah, but if you're asking for a snow day, my man, I wouldn't rely on it. I don't think it's going to be enough snow and plenty of time to clean up. If it was like during the day on Monday, then potentially. If you're like an overperforming area and they didn't have the resources, wasn't expecting it, then maybe you could. If you got like 7, 8, 9 inches and you really ridiculously overperformed, um, then I would say you could maybe. Believe me, I spent years of my childhood. I was trying to figure out how I could get a. I would study for your test, my man. I would study for your test. I would. My advice. I had when when I was in high school. My advice would be find a friend or put on music. Um, that's what helped me. That's what helped me get work done or study. Still does with when I have tasks to do. To an extent, yeah, I'd say both are important. If you see 1 inch of snow, then during the day they're not going to close. But if you see 5 inches of snow during the day, then they probably will close. So hand in hand, both play a part. But timing is very important for sure. Long Island. Are you asking about Long Island for today, or sorry, for Long Island for, I guess technically today, but Long Island for tomorrow, or I'm gonna assume tomorrow. Um, I, I'm going back and forth on Long Island. I think coding to 2 for Long Island is a good bet. I think coding to 2 inches is a good bet for Long Island. Western Long Island, oof. But central and eastern, northeastern Long Island, um, I think that would be a good bet. Coding to 2 inches. All right. I think we answered all you guys' questions. Go hop into NSFWWX, I think, is the username. Billy, he's really good, knows what he's talking about. I promise he'll explain it better than me. He's been doing it longer than me, knows what he's talking about. I will retweet his stream as well. And yeah, ironically, he just tweeted. So he'll be streaming the Euro and just the Storm in general. I'm sure he'll be talking about that system down the road as well. Go into his stream. For YouTube folks, he's on Twitter. He's not on YouTube. He is on Twitter. So go hop into his stream. My link to my Twitter for the YouTube folks is in my page, and it is also I will then retweet it. I appreciate everyone on the YouTube that liked or subscribed tonight. Hopefully we added some more folks that I could brainwash, I guess you could say. No, but you guys know I don't BS you here. I just try to do my best, do what I can. So appreciate everyone that came in tonight, and yeah, peace out. If you just came in, you can rewatch the stream. We went over everything. It was pretty clear and concise, so there wasn't a lot of what would you say it, distractions. Wasn't a lot of me going off in tangents, small couple tangents, but other than that, yeah, go up into Billy's stream soon.